مرحبا وأهلا بكم في برنامج داخل واشنطن. معكم مضيفكم روبرت ساتلوف. يا لها من فوضى عارمة بعد 4 أعوام من التخطيط وعام من بداية الحملة الانتخابية، وتوفر التقنيات الأكثر تقدما في العالم. جاءت الجولة الأولى ضمن الانتخابات الرئاسية التمهيدية للحزب الديمقراطي كارثية. فشلت أيوة، فشل النظام. لم يكن الفشل التقني المشكلة التي خشيها أغلب الناس، بالنظر إلى ما بذلته روسيا وغيرها من القوى الخارجية من جهود للتلاعب بالانتخابات عام 2016. فقد كان أكبر مخاوف للانتخابات عام 2020 هو التدخل في التصويت، بل وحتى اختراق النظام إخساء للأصوات. ولكن ما يزال الموسم الانتخابي في بداياته وقد يحدث ذلك. لمناقشة تحديات ومشكلات تنظيم الانتخابات اليوم، يسرني أن أرحب بخبيرتي الأمن الإلكتروني كريستين نايمان وكاثرين والدرين. Welcome back to Dakhel, Washington. Today we're going to discuss the technological challenges of putting on an election, what happened in Iowa, and what might happen in November with 2 experts, Kathleen Waldron and Kristen Nyman. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So, Iowa was a debacle. What happened in Iowa that collapsed?
Yeah, I think debacle is absolutely the right word. What they decided to do this year was bring on a new app, a new piece of tech to read the voting precinct sheets, and the app malfunctioned. And so what they did is they had to fall back to their fail-safe, which is calling in manually all of the numbers. They didn't have enough volunteers to support those phone calls, so the voting took hours.
So let's back up a bit. This is not an election. This is not what most Americans go to in every 2 years, cast a ballot, they count the ballots, winner or loser, we know right away. This is a different type of vote, right?
Yes, so the Iowa caucus the caucus process itself looks different. So in the caucus process, members of the Iowa Democratic Party actually go and they signal who they want to be the candidate through a different system. They go to the room and everyone who wants a different candidate goes to a different part of the room to register their pick. And so as a result, the rules are much more arcane, they're harder to understand. You're not submitting a ballot as you do in the traditional electoral process.
So if you go and you say I support Pete or Joe or Elizabeth, where was the problem?
Well, so the way that they do it is when you get there, you choose your initial preference. And if that candidate doesn't reach a 15% threshold, you are released from that preference. You may choose another preference. So it's a lot of managing, and as Catherine mentioned, it's literally people walking around and standing in groups to designate who their preference is. It's kind of a strange process. So at the end of the evening, the precinct captain gathers all these numbers by manually counting. And so he or she will go around and say, okay, Elizabeth Warren's camp has 15 people over there and they have 30 over there. And so it's a lot of manual counting, and that can lead to human error.
And so was there human error here or technological error?
Both.
Well, there was both. Both. Yeah, so there was the technological error that came with the app. The app had not been well tested. It was hard to many people couldn't download it. People who could download it had a hard time inputting their numbers correctly. For many people, they just couldn't reach or download the app at all. However, there was also additional human error in the counts. Some of them were miscounted between the first round and the second round. There were workers who didn't implement it properly. There's just a wide variety of both types of error.
This sounds like that bad movie where Robin Williams becomes president because the machines had a technological flaw in it.
You can almost liken it to that. In some cases, there were rounding errors that gave a certain candidate an extra delegate. So, I mean, this is a dangerous time to be making these mass errors.
How is it possible? I mean, we have 4 years to prepare. This is a serious effort. Candidates are spending tens of millions of dollars for these caucus votes, how could the Democratic Party not be prepared with an app that functioned?
Well, in the case of the app, it looks like it hadn't been tested very strongly before they rolled it out. They only decided to implement the app fairly recently. The company that designed the app was only incorporated about 6 months ago, actually. It had not been tested on a statewide level. So there's the failure to rigorously test the technology. But in regards to the human error of the caucus, we have actually seen human error happens every time there's an election process. It's gained more attention this year, specifically because of the app failing. But this is not a new phenomenon per se.
Do we expect this sort of problem in other primaries? Are there other states that have strange election systems that we can anticipate, failures?
It's interesting you say that, because in the wake of this Iowa debacle, Nevada has decided to not use their reporting app, which was going to be issued by the same company that issued Iowa's app. So they're pulling back entirely from this process and saying we're going back to paper ballots, which we would agree is obviously the most verifiable way to execute an election.
I mean, having a paper trail of individual votes that you can always recount if you want, never worrying about it getting erased or something.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, how does all of this compare with what happens in November in a real federal election? Are federal elections run by the same people who put on these primaries, or are they run by somebody else?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. It depends entirely on the structure of the state. And I think Catherine and I would agree that that's part of the problem. There are federal standards for commissioning an election, but each state has autonomy, and to a degree, each county. So each individual precinct has autonomy over the way that they issue their individual elections. And how secure those elections are is dependent upon that micro level of commissioners, I'll say.
Right. As Kristen said, in 2002, America passed the Help America Vote Act, and that helped set national standards in terms of how the election process should look like and how that should be run. However, when it gets down to the precinct level, a lot of those like the days when you're casting your vote, it's run by poll volunteers. And so those might be volunteers from the community. They may not have been trained. They may not be the same people working from one election to the next.
So what are some of the nationally accepted standards in the law that you have to follow everywhere in the country?
Well, for example, as part of the Help America Vote Act, all of the voter registration database has to be held at the state level together. And that is run typically by state IT professionals. And then as we get closer to the voting day, either on the day or day before, that statewide registration information will be sent to the precinct level in voter registration books. And so that process, how the information is set out, is detailed in the Help America Vote Act.
But ultimately, it's up to every local county, city, town, village in America to determine the precise format of how the election is run in that jurisdiction. Is that right?
Different states have different technology,
right,
and different methodologies. So most states have some sort of combination of a paper audit, a paper ballot, and then also an electronic voting machine.
And can you, as cybersecurity experts, see problems in this system?
Yes. Maggie, how much time did you say we had here today? Yes. I mean, we've seen cases. We recently wrote a piece talking about some of the just basic errors that you see at a national election level. And sometimes it doesn't even need to rise to a level of cybersecurity. You're talking about ballot boxes being left open, those booklets that Catherine just mentioned being left out in a place that's insecure for anyone to grab. And then if you want to speak about it from a technological perspective, these databases aren't housed, in Fort Knox. They're housed on an archaic computer run at some local precinct level. So yes, it's very easy to penetrate.
Okay, when we come back after the break, we're going to take a very close look at hacking issues with everything from voting rolls to the counting of ballots, and who the bad guys might really be when we think about trying to undermine our elections technologically. In just a moment. Our guests again today include Catherine Waldron. Catherine is resident fellow on national security and cybersecurity with R Street, a libertarian think tank based here in Washington. Her colleague, also with R Street, is Kristen Nyman. She is a specialist in government affairs and, like Catherine, a fellow in national security and cybersecurity. Together, they are co-authors of a recent op-ed article, Friendly Fire, the #1 threat to America's election cybersecurity. All right, let's begin with that. What do you mean by friendly fire? Human error by election workers, people arranging the registration and registering voters? So these are not purposeful efforts to undermine our democracy. These are mistakes.
They're mistakes.
So what might be an example of this, and how might it be corrected? And do you have a round figure for what percentage of votes either get lost or mistaken or are affected by the human error aspect of it? All right, well, let's shift to bad actors, people purposefully trying to undermine our election. Where in the process are our elections most vulnerable? All right, go at it.
I would say elections are.
Ransomware, explain that for our viewers. So California, if you don't pay me $10 million,
Exactly.
no one in Orange County is voting. Wow. Was there evidence in past elections of bad actors targeting registration rolls, voting systems, and counting systems as well? And how much better are we prepared today than we were 4 years ago? Now, you mentioned earlier that in addition to these attacks on the system, you put as a major threat disinformation. And we know so much about what happened in 2016. Now, technology companies have been responding a bit to this. Are we prepared better now in 2020 to protect against the disinformation aspect of the threat against our elections? Let me ask you about on the consumer side. Not totally, but predominantly younger people are going to be the ones that are targeted by these sorts of political advertisements. How savvy do you think young people are today to be able to distinguish the types of things you're just talking about? Are they going to be able to tell the difference between a fake ad and a real ad? Are they affected by this, or are they skeptical of ads in general? Interesting. So if you guys could wave your magic wand and fix something, each of you come up with a different suggestion about what to fix. What would you fix? Auditable. What do you mean? So with all the benefits of technology, we still need paper ballots.
I would say, yes.
Okay.
You can't hack paper.
Can't hack paper.
I would agree with that.
Okay, Catherine, Kristen, thank you so much for helping us understand this technological challenge to something that matters so much, our elections and our democracy. Thank you for joining us in Dakhel, Washington.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Remember when you were in elementary school and you voted for fourth grade class president? It was a contest between the most popular boy, the nicest girl, and the kid, boy or girl, that every parent knew, even at 10 years old, would grow up to be a U.S. Senator. All the students wrote down the name of their preferred candidate on a piece of paper, trying to hide their penmanship in case their best friend realized they voted for someone else. They folded it twice and put it into a shoebox. Then 2 class marshals, always 2, so no one could accuse just one of cheating, would pour the ballots on the teacher's desk and count them. The system worked. If only the leaders of the Iowa Democratic Party had attended a civics lesson taught by a class of 10-year-olds. If they had, they would have held a fair, transparent election whose votes could be counted quickly and accurately so that Iowa could serve its intended purpose: to identify which Democratic candidates have wind in their sails for the sprint through the next set of primaries. Instead, Iowa failed, and the Democratic Party, its nominating process, and the nation at large suffered. This sordid episode convinced me to join the legion of citizens who think the current primary system is foolish and counterproductive. The idea of primaries should be to determine who is the candidate best able to compete and to win the general election for that party. We currently empower states that have very little bearing on the general election to have an outsized vote in that decision. That makes no sense. Why should Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina matter so much in the primaries when Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Florida are the states that matter in November? A candidate has to win those states to win the election. I believe primaries should be there, not in states that don't really matter very much. So my humble proposal is this: after every presidential election, the parties should identify the 5 states with the closest votes and make those states the first 5 to have primaries. That gives the states and the parties 4 years to prepare, more than enough time to organize a primary vote. If they do this, they will ensure that the parties choose truly competitive candidates. And if they have 10-year-olds running the election themselves, perhaps they will even get results. بهذا نصل لنهاية هذه الحلقة من برنامج داخل واشنطن. إذا كانت لديكم أي استفسارات أو تعليقات حول هذه الحلقة، وخاصة حول أثر الفشل في آيوا على بقية الحملة التمهيدية للحزب الديمقراطي، أرجو أن تتواصلوا معي عبر تويتر على هاشتاج InsideWashington أو أن تراسلوني مباشرة على @RobSatloff. سأراكم الأسبوع المقبل، وإلى أن ألقاكم. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.
الناخبون في المناطق الريفية. أكبر تحول في تصويت الناخبين الأمريكيين حدث في المناطق الريفية. إنهم المزارعون ورعاة البقر في الولايات الواقعة بين نيويورك وكاليفورنيا. في انتخابات 2008 الرئاسية انقسمت أصوات الناخبين بين الرئيس أوباما والسيناتور جون ماكين بالأساس في المناطق الريفية. أوباما حقق فوزاً كبيراً في المدن الأمريكية وحصل على مفتاح البيت الأبيض. في 2016 فاز الرئيس ترامب بنسبة 62% من أصوات الناخبين في المناطق الريفية مقابل 34% لهيلاري كلينتون. رغم فوز هيلاري بكثير من الأصوات في مدن مثل شيكاغو، سياتل، سان فرانسيسكو، ميامي وواشنطن، المقترعون في بلدات أمريكا الصغيرة انتخبوا ترامب ضامنين وصوله إلى سدة الرئاسة. في 2020 المرشحون سيتنافسون منافسة شديدة على كسب ثقة هؤلاء الناخبين الريفيين.